All right, so here we have transformations of functions, stretches, and compressions, the last of the transformations we'll talk about. So transformation that increases the distance between points is a stretch. If it decreases the distance between points, it's referred to as a compression. So things get farther apart, things get closer together. So once again, just like everything else, we have the two directions, vertical stretches and compressions versus horizontal stretches and compressions. So vertical stretch, if we have this multiplier, we'll call A. If it's more than one, it's a vertical stretch by a factor of A. The graph gets taller. If A is between 0 and 1, then you have a vertical compression. The graph will get flatter by a factor of 1 over A. So, but we usually just deal with the number itself. So to actually do the calculations to find a vertical stretch or compression, you multiply the y value of any point by whatever the value of A is. The x value stays the same because you're just moving the points up and down, not left and right. Horizontal stretches and compressions, usually denoted by B. So it'll be inside like all the other horizontal stuff is. It'll be inside the grouping symbols. It's a horizontal compression by a factor of B. If it's between 0 and 1, it's a stretch. I'm not really particularly concerned about knowing the difference between whether it's a stretch or a compression. But to find a horizontal stretch or compression, we're going to divide the x value. So just like everything else, vertical and horizontal are opposites of each other. This one, for translation, you would do what you'd expect. This one, you do the opposite of what you expect. So we're going to divide our x value by any point. The y value stays the same as the graph is only shifting left-right. So just as a reminder, multiplying by a fraction is the same as dividing by the denominator. So we're going to take 1/2 times some value of y. That's the same thing as y divided by 2. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So dividing by 1/3 is the same as multiplying by 3. Just some helpful stuff for when we get to the examples. Okay, so example 1. So here's the graph of 2 to the x. We have 1/4 out front, so it's outside. So this is a vertical. For vertical stretches or compressions, we multiply our y values by 1/4. So at this point, it's at 2. 2 times 1/4 is 2/4, or 1/2. So this point will now sit at 1/2. This point is at 4. 4 times 1/4 would be 4/4, or just 1. This point that's all the way up 8. 8 times 1/4, would be 8/4, or 2. So the graph is now flatter than it was before. So example 2, once again, our coefficients out front. So we're going to multiply all of our y values, by 4. So this point that's 8 will be off the graph because it'll be at 8 times 4, or 32. Same thing is going to happen down here. This one will be negative 8 times 4, which would be negative 32. So I can't actually graph those because those are both way off the top and bottom. 0, 0 won't move because this point would be 0 times 4, stays 0. This point's at 1, so it's going to move up to 1, 2, 3, up to 4. So it doesn't move up 4 spaces, it goes up to 4. And this point that's at -1 will be down here at -4. So the graph is now much more narrow than it was before. Okay, so 3. Once again, coefficient out front, so all of our y values are going to multiply by 3. So this point that's currently at 2. 2 times 3 would be 6. This point that's at 1, 1 times 3 would be 3. -1 times 3 is -3. And -2 times 3 would be -6. So the graph is now much taller than it was before. All right, so 4, 1/4 out front. So everybody gets multiplied by 1/4, which, remember, multiplying by 1/4 is the same as dividing by 4, if that's easier for you to think about. So this point that's at 9, 9 divided by 4 is 9/4, which is 2 1/4. So that's all the way down here at about there. 4 divided by 4 would be 1. 1 divided by 4 would be 1/4. So 1/4, 4 divided by 4 would be 1, and this one will just be mirrored again, about there. So the graph is much flatter. So if you notice, if the coefficient out front is more than 1, the graph gets taller. If the coefficient is less than 1, the graph gets flatter. Okay, so now it looks like we've got the change in the x's. So we've got a 3 out front here. So since it's the opposite, we're going to divide all of our x's by 3. So this one's at 1 on the x value. So 1 divided by 3 would be 1/3-ish. 4 divided by 3 would be 4/3, which is 1 1/3. So that's about there. 9 divided by 3 will actually work out evenly, so it'll be over here at 3. Notice that I didn't change the heights. Those points stayed where they were, vertically. All right, so 1/2. So in this case, we're gonna have to divide everything by 1/2, which is the same as multiplying by 2. So we're gonna double all of our x values. So this point that's currently at x equals 2 will come over here to x equals 4. 1 will become 2. 0 times 0 doesn't change. This guy multiplied by 2 will be -2. -2 times 2 would be -4. So the graph gets wider. So if you notice, horizontal is a little bit opposite as well. This number is more than 1 and the graph moves in. This is less than 1, the graph moves out, which is the opposite for horizontal, or sorry, for vertical. All right, number 7, we got a 3, so we're going to divide by 3. So 2 divided by 3 would be 2/3, or 0.6666 repeating, so that's about, we'll call it there, is 2/3. 4 divided by 3 is 4/3, so that's 1 1/3, so about, we'll call it there. 8 divided by 3 is 8/3, so let's see, that would be 2 1/3. So 2 1/3 would be about there. So something like that. Whoops, I just did that. All of it was vertical. That's horizontal. We're going to divide our x's. So that point is at x equals 1, so it would be 1/3 there. That's at x equals 2. That would be 2/3 are there. That is at 3, so that's going to come over to 1. So it's going to look something like that. I did a y. Okay, so our last one here, 1/4. So we're going to divide everybody by 1/4, which is the same as multiplying by 4. X's this time, I'll try to do it right. So this has an x value of 1. 1 times 4 is 4. This has a x value of 4. 4 times 4 is 16. We're way off the graph. This is 9. 9 times 4 is 36. Way off the graph. So this graph is going to be super duper stretched out horizontally. And that ended the section.